Hello my friends, and welcome to a try a chapter video. I am trying to reduce my physical TBR. I'm feeling overwhelmed by it, and a lot of the books have been on my shelves for a while. I'm not as interested in them now as when I first got my hands on them. My physical TBR consists of that bookshelf there, my TBR cart, and then I have a number of classics in my main floor on my main bookshelf that I have also not read. For the most part, I'm okay with classics sitting on my TBR shelf. I like to pick those up when I can find them in little free libraries or cheap at the thrift store. I want them there for when I'm ready for them. It's the more modern-ish books that I'm struggling with. And so I went on my bookshelf and I gathered a decently large stack of books that are no longer interesting me. And I'm going to make fairly snap decisions, not as fast as I have made before, because I have done this based on the first sentence and paragraph of books before, but I'm going to be judging books by their first chapter. I will not be sad if I get rid of any of these books. So if the first chapter does not grip me, it's going. That being said, I am always willing, if enough people yell at me, I'm always willing to pull a book off of my unhaul pile. So if I decide to get rid of one of these and everyone tells me, no, don't get rid of it, you're gonna love it, I will listen to you, okay? But you have to shout loudly. So I'm gonna just tell you what the books are, and then after I read the first chapters, I'll explain a little bit more about the books, because I generally don't know anything really going into a book other than the name and the genre. So I got a big stack of books here. Let's see here. First one is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. There we go. I read the first few chapters of Spinning Silver. There we go. And really was not taken in at all. So I have low expectations for Uprooted. I think this is a fairy tale retelling of some sort, but we will see. These are also in no particular order. The Paris Deception by Bryn Turnbull. This is a World War II historical fiction something or other. We've got The Paradise War by Stephen R. Lawhead. I have not really loved any of his books. If I don't enjoy this first chapter, I might still hold on to the physical book and see if Jared wants to read it. He's currently reading the Bright Empire series by him, and I know he's read more Stephen Lawhead than I have, so this, I'm assuming, is fantasy, although sometimes he writes just historical, so I actually don't know. We will see what the first chapter tells me. I have Spellbound by Kara Lynn Schultz. Honestly, I think I got this at in a little free library, not knowing anything. It's, I think, YA fantasy maybe. That's all. Oh, Stuart McLean's Stories from the Vinyl Cafe. I have heard good things about this. This is a Canadian, I'm not sure what, honestly, though. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'll tell you more after the first chapter. Facing the Dawn by Cynthia Ruschetti. I think this is contemporary Christian fiction. Eden Hill by Bill Higgs. Also, oh, this one's historical Christian fiction. I may have tried the first chapter of this before. I don't even remember. I'm hoping that trying the first chapters here will either help me to get rid of books or motivate me to read them. That definitely did happen. I've been doing a number of these over on my Patreon for the last month, and there's a couple books that I've read recently because I got so inspired to read them after trying a chapter. Then I've got Randy Alcorn's Deadline. So I love his one about China. Safely Home, I think it's called. This is very different. I think this is contemporary fiction, Christian fiction, maybe? I don't really know. And I think I also own book 2 in this series, so if I don't like it, I can get rid of 2 books. Middle grade. The 13 and a Half Lives of Captain Blue Bear. I think this is just whimsical middle grade with lots of illustrations throughout. I kind of hope I love it, but also it's huge. I mean, lots of illustrations, keep that in mind. But it's a lot of pages to read. And then I've got the Lincoln Highway. This is a little deceiving because I got the large print edition because I got it secondhand. Amar Towles, he is an author that I just don't know about. I am on the side of not enjoying A Gentleman in Moscow, so I have been scared to try another one of his books. This is 1950s America, so historical fiction of some sort. And that is my stack. It is a lot of pages, but thankfully I am just reading the first chapter of each of these. This will take me a few days to read the first chapters of these, but I plan on checking in periodically as I go and letting you know what I think based on the first chapter and if I'm keeping them or if they're going. I think there's 10 books here. Honestly, I would really like to get rid of more than 50% of them though. That would be ideal. So we'll see how this goes. I finished the first chapter of 13 and a Half Lives of Captain Blue Bear and thought I would do my review this way so I could show you all the pictures because there's quite a few of them. So this is a demi-biography of a seagoing bear. And each chapter is Captain Blue Bear's time with a bunch, like a different group of people, different kinds of people. First of all, there's a cool map that I'm assuming is kind of where he goes throughout the book. So he talks about how, well, he wasn't born. He doesn't know how he came into being, but he was in a walnut shell on the ocean. And he ends up falling in with the mini pirates. And he spends the first few years of his life with the mini pirates. The writing is humorous. At the same time, it's like, this is, I think, aimed towards middle grade. But there are some, like, grandiose, there's some big words in here. I was thinking my 11-year-old might enjoy some of this humor. And all the pictures make for turning the pages quite quickly. And then I like that they have little, they're like little headings over on the side for what's going on in each little section. There's the different waves. We've been talking about the word undulating in our house and how it's in every book. And so when I found undulates in here, that cracked me up. So overall, this is the same picture for the cover. Overall, I've decided this is not a book for me. But I wanted to ask my 11-year-old if he is interested in it. I think he'll get overwhelmed by the size. The page count is over 685 pages. But you turn the pages pretty quickly. And then we go on to chapter 2, where he goes to live with the hobgoblins because the mini pirates maroon him on an island because he got to be way too big for their boat. I don't know if he would be interested. I know that I'm not interested. So that's one book checked off. And then next up, I'm going to try my 3, what I think are contemporary books. I managed to get the other 3 first chapters in already. So let's go in the order I read them in. First up, Stories from the Vinyl Cafe. I read the first chapter. I still don't really know what it is. It introduces a host of wonderfully imagined characters. I don't know. I read the first chapter. It is about a couple. This guy takes their guinea pig to the vet and they paid $30 for the guinea pig and there's like maybe $500 to see if it has cancer or a tumor or something. And he has this inner war whether or not he should help the guinea pig, like what to do. It was funny. I could see how some people would like this. I don't care. So I'm gonna put this in my unhaul pile. And then I read Facing the Dawn. This first chapter, we are with this woman who's middle-aged-ish. Her 3 kids are all in high school. Her husband is in Africa on a 4-year contract digging wells for people. So great cause, but he's been gone for 3 years. I don't know if he's come back at all. She's a little bitter about that. She, right at the beginning of the book, has been called into the principal's office of her 6th grader. Oh, okay, so they're not all in high school. of her 6th grader and she's being asked to not bring treats to school anymore because she made it gluten-free, strawberry-free, peanut-free, but the fruit that was an option for kids with some allergies was on skewers, and that was very dangerous. So the principal very not kindly asked her to not do that anymore. I like her sarcastic wit that she has. And then she got asked by her boss to work overtime. Yeah, so she's definitely struggling with her husband being gone, a little bitter about that. Her name is Mara, which means bitterness. So I can see myself reading this. I'm very curious to see where it goes. So I'm gonna put this on the keep pile. And then I read Deadline, and I'm kind of unsure which pile this is gonna go on. So we follow 3 friends who are 50, 3 guys, and they start out watching a football game, and then they go get pizza, and we learn a little bit more about them. So we've got the Christian guy, the atheist, and the guy in the middle that can play. It says he can feel at home in either home, but doesn't really know what he actually believes. And then right at the end of the first chapter, they're in a car accident. And I feel like I could read this, or I could not, and be okay either way. I think I'm gonna unhaul it, and if I ever want to get it from the library, I'm sure that I could, and then I can also unhaul the second book. So that would be nice. So far I'm only keeping 1 book. And then next up, I have 3 historical fiction that I'm going to try out. Okay, I finished my 3 historical fiction. It's been a few days, but I read them this morning. It's been a few days since my last update. Which one did I start with? I started with Eden Hill. Okay, so this is 1962. Our main character, Virgil, wakes up and something's wrong. His wife has given him the cold shoulder. Okay, he goes, he does the chickens, he comes back. Turns out she's been reading in the magazine. She did a quiz, he failed. She's worried maybe he's cheating on her because he's just not very romantic. And he is the typical 1960s man who is like, well, I've got a good job, I provide for her, like, we're doing good. Yeah, and ew, it was just so cringy. He was like, oh yeah, well, I did forget our anniversary that one time and I'll never do that again. And that's a pet peeve of mine. I hate it when women are like angry at men when they forget anniversaries. And I think that's just because I do remember dates pretty well, but I am a forgetful person, and I wouldn't want someone holding it over my head if I forgot things. Jared and I are both always like, how many years have we been married? And like try to do the math. So I feel like I can relate. So I hate it when I see women berating men or holding a grudge because they forgot something. If you really want a man to remember, remind him. Just get over it. Yeah, so definitely not keeping this book. I got this in a mystery box, a Christian fiction mystery box, like a couple of years ago already. So I'm glad to get rid of it because it's been sitting on my shelves forever. Then I read The Paris Deception. So we start out with a big bonfire where they are burning art. And so our main character seems to have something to do with art. She's originally German. There was a prologue, so I read the prologue and the first chapter. And she obviously moves, she's in France. And the Germans are about to invade. It's obviously something to do with art. It was very few pages that I had to read. I liked the idea of it. I didn't feel like the writing was overly gripping. If this was about books instead of art, I think I would have been more intrigued. Like, I enjoy art, but I'm not super into it. So I have re-evaluated how I've been looking at my books. And instead of being like, oh, was this first chapter like good enough for me to keep it? It's more like, do I really want to read this now? And if not, can I get it from the library in the future? And if I can, why hold on to it? So I'm not saying this one, I have no intention of ever reading it. Maybe I will read this one at some point, but now is not that point, and I don't feel like it needs to take up space on my shelf. So I'm gonna get rid of that one. And then The Lincoln Highway. You guys, Amor Tolls. I am on the side of not enjoying A Gentleman in Moscow. I've said that many times. I read that book and I was just like, when are things gonna happen? I didn't realize we were not gonna leave that hotel for 30 years. So going into this with low expectations, we are with a teen boy, must be late teens I think, who just got out of juvie. His warden is bringing him home, and then he finds out his home is going to be on foreclosure. The first chapter was really long. I didn't read it all. Also, I have the large print edition because I got it secondhand and that's what there was. So I don't know what is all specific to the large print. First chapter seemed very long. Also, there's no quotation marks. I'm assuming that wouldn't just be a large print thing. I'm assuming that is a thing in the real one too, but that's very hard to read. So they have like a dash and then a quote, but when someone stops talking, there's no indication that they're done talking. So that was an interesting choice that I think was a poor one. Oh, but one thing I did write that I did like is the map. I'm all for books having maps. Every book should have a map. Like, they're gonna do a road trip. What I ended up doing is I went online and I read a summary of the entire book, and after reading that I was like, oh, I'm glad I had already decided that I was not going to keep this. Originally I was like, maybe I could get it from the library, but then I looked it up and I'm like, oh no, I would not want to read this book. It has things, which would be spoilers so I won't say them, that are like things I really don't enjoy in books. So I think many of you probably would. Like, it's not yeah, but I can't say things. Yeah, it's just not for me. So that was a pretty easy decision. That means my next batch here is my last one. I still don't know if this is fantasy, but the other two are. So I will read the first chapter of these hopefully in the next day or two. And then we'll see. So far my get rid of stack is looking pretty large. Time for my thoughts on the final 3 books. So the first one is The Paradise War, which ends up being some kind of like Celtic mythology book. So it kind of makes me think of his Hood book, except I think that this one has a little bit of fantasy or science fiction in it as well. But his one that is Hood is set in medieval times in Wales, I think, if I remember correctly. This seems to be modern times, or at least ish. I don't really know based on the first chapter. The book was written in 1991. Oh yeah, so it could be modern times for that, for sure. First of all, it gives you like this double-paged pronunciation guide of Celtic words. That was a little overwhelming because I was like, oh no, now I have to like learn how to pronounce all these different sounds. They're just different letters. But I didn't need it for chapter 1. And chapter 1, our main character, his roommate, sees a news article about this, like, I can't remember what the creature's called. It's like a woolly mammoth type thing that's supposed to be extinct that is possibly alive. I have no idea. So it's like some kind of mythical creature that they're going to, I don't even know where they're planning on going. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. I thought it had some really good humor. I didn't love it, so I was thinking I would put this on Jared's stack and get him to read it first and let him tell me if he thinks I'll like it, because he is really good at knowing my taste and stuff. So yeah, and he is an obliger. If you guys know Gretchen Rubin's 4 Tendencies, he does what other people tell him to do, which is good, but I also need to not take advantage of that. So we'll see if he is interested. He's read a lot of Stephen Lawhead stuff already, and I'll let him kind of decide for me what's going on there. Then I read Spellbound. I think I just found this in a little free library one time, not knowing anything about it. So our main character is starting a new school. There was an incident that she needed to move. She moved in with her like great aunt or something like that, and she's trying to like leave her past behind her. And the first chapter is the first day of school, and there's something, so she's trying to like, you know, fit in, but like not trying to be too cool. But oh man, I'm just so glad I'm not this age. She's grade 11, a junior, I think. We don't use like freshmen, but sometimes we use freshmen, but sophomore, junior, senior here in Canada. So I'm always like, okay, what does that one mean? Yeah. So then she meets a couple people, and I know based on like a little bit on the back that this one guy that she's kind of interacts with a little bit, I think it goes into like some kind of fantasy or paranormal maybe stuff with him in the future. I wrote down that right at the beginning, the book is dedicated to her grandma. I have a soft spot if books are dedicated to grandmas, so bonus points right there. And then she is being introduced to the school by her younger cousin, who is a freshman. And she says, "I knew that juniors did not hang out with the lower classes. It was like hanging out with a bunch of vegetarians and wearing a bacon necklace. Talk about unwelcome." I loved that because as the humor was great. That was right on the very first page, the second, third paragraph. And there was a decent amount of humor in here. I feel like the vibes might be perfect for this time of year. So this one's gonna be a keeper, and a keeper for me to read, not a keeper for Jared to proofread for me. Then I tried Uprooted by Naomi Novik. I have not loved the books that I've read by her. Spinning Silver, I DNF'd. I kind of thought this would have a similar writing style to Spinning Silver because, I mean, same author, but it didn't to me. I was very intrigued. I actually was really enjoying the first chapter. I did think it was a little bit long. It was 24 pages. And when I'm doing try a chapter and I'm like, oh, how many more pages are left? Usually that means I'm kind of uninterested, but I wouldn't say that I was uninterested. I'll read the first sentence because it had a great first sentence. "Our dragon doesn't eat the girls he takes, no matter what stories they tell outside our valley." That's perfect. So this is in a valley where this dragon, I don't know why they call him a dragon, he's a man, but one that doesn't age. He, every 10 years, takes a girl from the village. And then every 10 years he comes back for another one. And then the old one comes back to live with her family for a week to a month and then leaves and goes somewhere else. So no one really knows what's going on with this dragon. Interestingly enough, this is the 4th book that I've read or started to read that has that premise of a guy or something from a different world kind of coming into the mortal world and taking a girl or a queen or something like that. The 4th one in less than a year. I actually started a book last night that had that exact same premise right after I read this first chapter. So that was kind of weird. I don't feel like it's overly common, but apparently it's just appearing everywhere for me right now. So I decided this was interesting enough that I want to continue it. But I'm gonna have to wait a little bit to give myself a break from this concept since I'm currently reading one with that concept as well. Okay, so if I grab all the books here, this means I am getting rid of all these books. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books I'm gonna get rid of. One book I'm gonna keep, but I may or may not read. The jury's still out on that. And then 3 books that I want to keep and read. I feel like this was very successful. I was hoping that I was gonna get rid of at least 50% of the books, and I'm getting rid of 60% of the books and only promising to read 30% of them. So that makes me feel really good. I am going to be doing another try a chapter with a specific kind of book over on my Patreon probably later this month as well, if you guys enjoy try a chapters. Plus I did a couple in the last month. And then I'll feel like my shelves are pretty much where I want them for the moment. If you guys have loved some of these books that I'm going to be getting rid of, I would love to hear it. What are the things that you enjoyed about them? What made you want to read them? Do you think I'm making a mistake for my reading tastes? Let me know. And if you guys, I mean, if you've read the Stephen Lawhead one, I'm curious. Do you think I'll like it? And then the 3 that I'm keeping, where do you guess I'm gonna fall on these? I always love hearing your guys' predictions. So Thanks for hanging out with me over the last couple days.